All right, welcome to the latest edition of the Walkout presented by Cincy Shirts. Paul Danier Jr., Jay Morrison, here with you inside Paycor Stadium on a day where the Bengals beat the Raiders 41 to 24. Exhale all around because it was one that they had to have, one that had a few tense moments, and eventually ended up with the Bengals sort of running away with one thanks to a Raiders team they're just not good.
No.
They're just not good. There's really no other way around that. But it didn't really matter. This was a survive and advance day, and the Bengals did just that, Jay.
Yeah, they did. And the Raiders weren't good to begin with. And then they had 5 guys leave with ankle injuries. Never seen that before. Amazing day. And some amazing individual performances. And like you said, it survive and advance. You're always kind of worried about these kind of games when you've got a huge division game coming up on Thursday night against Baltimore, the trap game, so to speak. They couldn't afford to look ahead at all, and they did not. They didn't just win; they won convincing.
Yeah. Of course, we're brought to you by Cincy Shirts. We are going to have a special deal on a Cincy Shirts hoodie. It's hoodie season, right? And it's November. So we're going to have a special deal on the Cincy Shirts hoodie. Stick around for that at the end of the walkout here. And a reminder, our next live show down at BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar at the Banks is going to be on Monday the 11th. Veterans Day. We will be down there having a mid-season media madness. It's 3 M's that makes it special. We're going to have a ton of us down there, just like we do our preseason show that we did before the Thursday opener. We're going to do one before Monday Night Football and kind of go through all things that are stirring with the Bengals. They'll be coming off Thursday's game in Baltimore, so Lord knows we'll have plenty to talk about there. We have plenty to talk about today. First of all, we're going to talk about angry Joe Burrow. We need to talk about Germaine Burton. There is a ton going on with the Germaine Burton situation. We're going to try to get you all behind the scenes and caught up on everything that's going on with that. Trey Hendrickson with a huge record day. The trade deadline is coming up Tuesday. We have injuries, including one that could be significant with Eric All. Other things that are happening around the division. There's just a lot going on. There's just a lot going on. My main takeaway, here's where I want to start, though. I want to start with angry Joe Burrow. If you went and you piece together all of the press conferences in history for a quarterback after throwing for 5 touchdown passes, I would like to know if anybody was even in the same stratosphere of a crappy mood like Joe Burrow was, who was just absolutely uninterested in anybody being happy about what had happened out there. He claimed it was, a combination of things. And during the game, even
a couple times,
we saw a blow up on the sideline where he comes off the field after their first punt, leading 31-10, and got his arms out like this, confronting the offensive lineman. Looked like Ted Karras. There's a bunch of them in there. Then goes over and he slams something down on the bench. And he was mad after the game. This quote made me laugh out loud in the press room afterwards, just going back through and listening to it again. Knowing what we're going to have to do to get back into this. One win doesn't make or break our season. Striving for perfection every day, and everything that happens, what's there to be happy about? And I was like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. There's a great Seinfeld scene that I send to people on their birthdays all the time, where it's George is trying to convince this girl that Jerry actually isn't funny. And he's not funny. So Jerry says, I can be not funny. He tries to act depressed, and he says, I'll go ahead and do it. Well, birthdays are merely symbolic of how another day is come and gone, and how little we've grown. No matter how desperate we are, to someday the better self will emerge. With each flicker of the candles on the cake, we know it's not to be. That for the rest of our sad, wretched, pathetic lives, this is who we are to the bitter end. Inevitably, irrevocably, happy birthday. No such thing. Jerry Seinfeld meet Joe Burrow. That's all I could think as I listened to Joe Burrow be unhappy with just about everything that was going on. But I think that's what's needed right now. There is chaos happening with this team. Absolute chaos. And we're about to tick through all of them, from the injuries to T and Orlando Brown and now Eric All, and the defense stinks, and Jermaine Burton is a no-show at a Saturday practice, and they have to rip up the game plan for the third time this season. All of these things are going sideways. They're in a must-win game against the Raiders. They got a game on Thursday. They needed Joe Burrow to be pissed off all day and keep everybody laser focused. He even comes up after the game in the locker room and is the one to speak up. And we talked a lot about him not always being the one to speak up in those moments. He's the one saying that, guys, no time to dwell on the good. The game is Thursday. It's a massive one for the state of our season to go in there and win. We got to be focused on winning in it. And for him to step up in that moment and to be angry and say, we're not going to accept going out there and having a bad quarter. Not me, not you, not any of us. I feel like they needed Joe Burrow to grab the wheel and white knuckle it with two hands this week, and he really did.
And we talked about that the Raiders aren't great, so I can see that where he feels like they should score on every possession, and it was bad that situation. The O-line, they had the protection wrong. They thought the blitz was coming from somewhere else. If they pick that up the way they should have, it's a long touchdown to Jamar. It was an easy play. They didn't make it. He looked mad after his fifth touchdown pass. I think a lot of it goes back to the Burton situation. A lot of the guys were brotherly, embracing him, do what we need to do to help him. I think Burrow's legit pissed off about what happened with that, and beating a bad team is not a salve for that. And just getting, I don't know how much of it was raw, honest emotion and how much of it was, like you said, leadership, getting guys, don't think about this one. Don't celebrate this one. It's Wednesday already. We play the Ravens in a few days. And I think that was part of his message too, is we've got to have the foot on the gas and keep this thing going.
They do. And it's interesting. I mean, he played great. I mean, he was all over the place making plays. He had 4 touchdowns that were all off script red zone touchdowns. That's just Burrow. It breaks down. He finds a way to make a play. And we're kind of seeing more and more and more of that from him. And it's not just him doing that with, like he's done a million times to Jamar or to T. It's Chase Brown. It's Andre Osivach. It's Gesicki.
Yeah.
It's Drew Sample, right? I mean, it's like he's out there working with new guys and new pieces. He connected with 8 different receivers in this game, including all of them with a reception of at least 9 yards, most with much more than that. And again, they didn't punt until that point in the third quarter. And then he points out, look, we had a bad quarter. There was good and there was bad. And I think he really focused on the bad. I mean, he looked, at the end of the game, he looked just pissed. He's coming off. He just looks mad. He looks mad on the sideline. And it's because he just feels like he knows they need to be better. And they can do this against bad teams. But it's, and he was even asked straight up, like, do you think this would have been good enough to beat a good team? And he had a long time to think about it. He's like, I don't know about that. It was good enough today. And I think it won't be good enough on Thursday to not have a complete game. But when they were going, I mean, they didn't punt. Yeah. And they got a huge lead and were able to just kind of put teams away. And I think so much of this falls on Burrow being able to pull them through a weekend that ended up with a ton of bad vibes and had to have everybody feeling extremely apprehensive walking into the stadium today.
Yeah, and I think the pick 6 chapped his ass too. I don't think he was happy about that. And that's what, I mean, he's a perfectionist and he wants, it has to be better. He wants it to be better. So I think that was a big part of it. And like you said, it's something this team needs.
All right, let's discuss this Germaine Burton situation real quick. So basically, I mean, you guys know the storyline. Hell, Growler Bet people, I love you. You guys are great.
Cheaters.
And you got an opportunity to cheat today, right? At 11:30, when Jermaine Burton ends up inactive, all of you guys flooded in with the answer of 0 for our Growler Bet, which was Jermaine Burton receiving yards. I'm not going to give it to you. We're not going to give 100 bar tabs away. Okay, I appreciate all of you. We will pick one. I will pick one randomly, maybe one that I like the subject header the most, but I'm not going to give 100 bar tabs away. I'll wear one of them. That said, it was a storyline, and it was the Growler bet because the week was full of him being the storyline.
Yeah.
Germaine Burton finally starting to figure it out. Literally everyone standing up and saying about all the right things about Jermaine Burton, about how he's figuring things out and maturing, and he's, you know, he went out there and you weren't speaking Chinese to him, and he didn't have palms up, not knowing what the hell he's doing, and it seemed like they were ready. The game plan involved Jermaine Burton massive expansion. That was the thing, because they had no T, they had no Charlie Jones, they're down receivers. Yosevich was not really producing much. They needed it, and they counted on it. They put a game. They said, "We're doing it. We're going to trust you." And you end up and it's a no-show on Saturday. That is really hard to wrap your brain around.
Yeah.
And Zach Taylor talked about it after the game, said it was a tough decision, but it wasn't, because there has to be some sense of accountability. So he ends up inactive for this game, and they have to rearrange and rip up the game plan. Then you have a group of teammates that have to come to terms with that too. I mean, the distraction that causes in the locker room. I want to bring you some reaction from the locker room. And also Zach Taylor said no suspension or anything further is expected with this. They're expected to just kind of handle this with what they have and try to help him be a better player, with the understanding that this was wrong. We're going to discuss this a little bit more. I want to give you some of the locker room reactions, specifically starting with, we started this thing with Burrow, and then it was Sam Hubbard and Mike Hilton. You'll know the voices.
The guy that you like his demeanor, you like his energy, you like how he practices hard. He's got a chance.
Do you specifically talk to him? Like, how do you help him specifically?
We'll have discussions, and just like any young player, you're gonna try to help him along any way that you can. And as he gets older, he'll understand things in a different way. He's a young guy right now.
How do you guys as captains handle something like what happened with Jermaine Burton this weekend? What happens? Do you guys as captains get together? How does that work?
It's a special situation. Me personally, I just want to make sure he's all right. See if there's anything I can do to help him. Be there for him if something comes up. But, young guys, sometimes they just need someone to be on their side and help them through this. Because you never know what people are going through. And I think that, this organization's a great place to be for guys that, just need a way to learn how to be a pro. And so that's what we can try and do.
When you get to this point in your career, you got to grow up. You know what I mean? You're a grown man. Nobody's going to baby you anymore. We know how talented he is and how much he can help, but he has to grow up and just mature and realize he got to put the team over himself.
How does that land in the locker room on a Saturday? Like, is that a distraction, or is that just another thing happening?
Another thing happening. I mean, like I said, he's a rookie, so some things you kind of expect, but. That's the thing about this business, man. We can't be worried about the next man. We can only worry about the guys that's here and locked in.
Jay, we kind of hear all sides of it there. You get the empathy side from Sam Hubbard. You get the I got to have conversations with them stuff from Joe Burrow. And you get the you're a grown-ass man, dog, from Mike Hilton, basically saying, look, it's time to grow up. People are dependent on you. You got to put the team first, and a little more of the tough love side of it. I think that falls – different people react to these types of things different ways. And I just think it's legitimate concern for the person too. I think they feel like something's clearly not right here to have that kind of a disconnect at the biggest weekend of your career.
Yeah.
And to then have that happen, that one's a hard one to even understand a little bit. And I think that's why you hear the different versions of people kind of turning into their own version of parent and figuring out, how do we help this guy? What is going on?
Yeah, and I think what you said about the person part of it is a big part of this, because he is a likable guy. These guys spend all this time together, and it's he's not just running around like a jerk all week where it would be easy to just throw your hands up and say you're done with the guy. I think there is genuine concern for him as a person because this is not normal. I mean, I was a chucklehead. I did a lot of dumb stuff growing up. I never no-showed at my job, and it wasn't a job like I just don't understand how that happens, especially like you said, where the entire team's counting on you. The role, the game plan's in place. The role is going to increase this year, and now how do you trust him going forward? Can you make him the focus of a game plan again, or do you have to just kind of ease it in, thinking, well, what if this happens again? Is double secret probation? Is it next time it happens? Is not suspended? Is he cut? Do they just totally wash their hands of him? It puts everybody in a really bad spot, and I think maybe it's the best thing for him because it could be the light bulb moment where he sees that, okay, it is real now. It could, in a weird way, be the best thing for this team. You see it all the time where teams are struggling. You hit a little bit of adversity, you come through it like they did today. They had one of the best offensive games of the year. Yeah, not a great team, but they react to the Burton thing. That could have derailed a team big time. Having to rip up a game plan after the guy pulls that on a Saturday. They came through it. So I think everybody's just kind of hoping for the best. This can be a catalyst, but it is super concerning because that is not normal for an NFL player to pull that kind of stuff.
I mean, even by rookie mess up standards,
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable in that particular moment. And everyone in the organization ends up with egg on their face. They all stood up for this kid this week. They all did. Now, and they all have responsibility for it. They drafted him knowing that there was weird character concerns. So the word different personality were thrown around a lot. I think they're living that. They're living that experience right now. And it's something that they knew, and it's a project that they're working through. But when you have so much on the line every week right now, and I don't know how you trust them. And to me, I don't know how you ever trust somebody after this happens. And that's I don't. To me, I think you'd like to see suspension. I would be open to taking trades. I mean, because I just don't know how you can trust that again. That's the question for me is like, how do you trust the guy to build a game plan, know that you're not going to have to rip it up again, that he's going to, and the reverb, and everybody's saying the right things. And I think they're legitimately behind him and people want to help him. But boy, that is such a scar.
Yes.
And I don't know necessarily what the path forward is. They are going to try to help him. Obviously, I don't get the impression, certainly all that they have any idea to do that. But as far as a trade or just moving on or cutting, that doesn't sound like anything like what they have plans on doing. But you wonder is this strong enough? Like, is it strong enough to just go through this and say you were inactive this week? Are you gonna make him active on Thursday? Are you gonna say we need him and build plays for him? Are you gonna put him in there? Are you gonna say I mean, I don't. To me, that doesn't make as much sense. There's a ton of conversations that Joe Burrow and everybody else needs to have it. And if he can't talk sense into him, I certainly don't know who can. But for now, that's where that stands. They're going to go forward, and he's here for now, and we'll see what happens next. Did we get everything on that?
Yeah, I think so. It's not an oops. It's not an accident. It was an overt decision to not show up and not call. And I'm with you. I don't know how you can go forward.
And it's one thing if this is the first thing that's ever happened with this guy. This has been going on since the moment he walked into the building, this type of stuff. Mm-hmm. That is the reason that he hadn't really been playing to this point. And that's also a bigger part of the conversation here. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about a trade deadline now Tuesday. We're mentioning all the things that are going on, right? Okay. We'll have another show. We'll have a show coming to you on Tuesday, so we can talk a bunch more about that. I know there was a bunch of talk out there about the trade deadline. Look, the Bengals making calls. Of course, every team is going to make calls. That does not mean that anything is even realistic or it's, if you have this guy available, can we give you a toaster for him?
Yeah.
I don't, the real conversations, right? I can continue to say the real conversations, anything serious has not bubbled up. They're listening. they're making calls. There's also a lot of teams and agents that would like to create bidding wars that are out there. And so you're going to hear a lot of rumors. You're going to hear a lot of things that are going to fly around between now and Tuesday. It's a busy deadline. They pushed it back a week, and there's action out there. There's a ton of teams that desperately need help, specifically at edge rusher and cornerback, the two positions the Bengals are tracking right now. And would they be willing to give up any type of thing to win even a small bidding war at this point? Do you want me to recall the A.J. McCarron story for you? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the other team just continues to give and give and give. We've seen this where they have not been able to consummate trades in season. That's how you end up never really trading for a player in season, which, by the way, we're going to continue to remind you, in season trades. They've made tons of trades outside of the season, but at the deadline in season, they've only really made 2 for a player, and those barely even count. They took complete napalm leagues that we've talked before about the trade of Dunlap and when you had to trade Carson Palmer and all that stuff. Not going to go through any of that. My point is, I still don't see anything happening. And crazy things happen. They had injuries out there today that could force a hand, and maybe it does. I just have not gotten the impression that anything is moving to a serious level. They're going to have conversations. They're going to make calls because everybody does. There's some desperate teams. The Lions, desperate for an edge rusher.
Yes.
The Falcons, desperate for an edge rusher. Teams that need corners are desperate, and they're right there. They're on the precipice. I mean, the Lions are out here trying to load up for a Super Bowl. They look great. So to think that they're not going to come over the top of teams that are always more aggressive than the Bengals are, it's just not something that feels realistic. And things happen, man. Things can happen crazy. I just do not get the impression that we're rising to that level at all.
Maybe running back.
Yeah.
Because that's a position that I don't think is as much of a need league-wide, where they could maybe sneak a guy in for a 6th-round pick, 7th round. Zach Moss misses the game today with a neck injury. Could be long-term. Chase Brown looked fantastic today, but that's not a guy you want touching the ball 32 times every game. I know a lot of fantasy owners would like that, but I don't know that he's durable enough to hold up to have that kind of workload every single week. And behind him, it's Travion Williams, and then
Kendall Milton,
who they called up from the practice squad today, made his NFL debut.
Yeah, no, running back is one that has popped up after what happened with Zach Moss, who appears to have suffered a significant neck injury. Does not look good for him. Speaking of injuries, Eric All, right knee. Yeah. Zach Taylor essentially said doesn't know at this point, as we're recording right now. We don't know specifically at this point, but he was, quote, worried for him. And I think right knee. I hate to even speculate because he's a guy that's had injury problems. He's had right knee problems. Like it's so much in his past. It was non-contacty. You saw it the moment that he tried to make that cut. It looked weird. And so, boy, what a devastating loss that would be if you lose him for a significant amount of time. Potentially the season is in play, it seems like.
Yeah, and he said after the game, "I'm good mentally."
Yeah.
And that kind of said it there. And he had crutches, but he wasn't walking on them. He didn't have a brace or anything on the knee, but they had given him crutches, but he was just carrying them around the locker room. He was not using them, but it does not look good. And that would be a huge blow. Don't look at his receptions and receiving yards. Look at what he's done to get this run game going. Again, had a little hiccup for a while, but he's been so key to what they've done this year.
Yeah, and as has BJ Hill, as they have gotten healthy on the defensive line, things have looked better, at least against bad offenses. And they have, against bad offenses, they're only giving up about 14 points a game on average as far as offense points, but against good offenses, they're giving up about 33 points a game, over 30. That's been consistent, and that was the truth really again today, despite some late garbage time stuff and things like that. For the most part, they've been able to keep those numbers low. They have a lot of bad offenses coming their way in the future, so there's hope. But BJ Hill has been a big part of that on a defensive line that's outside of Trey Hendrickson, largely disappointed. He hasn't, and he has a rib injury. We don't know how serious that will end up being, but certainly doesn't seem good. He was pretty quickly ruled out, and we know how that can be. We'll learn more on that. So another one to monitor. We'll also obviously be monitoring T. Higgins. Can he come back from the quad on Thursday? Orlando Brown, who missed his first game, he said, basically in his life today. Will he be able to go back in Baltimore in a big week, on a short week? Those will be things that we'll monitor closely. I think there's hope for both of those guys, but it's hard to know for certain when you're talking, especially when you're talking about quad, soft tissue stuff, on how that's totally recovering and getting back. But T being on the rehab field last week gives you some hope for him to be able to go specifically in Baltimore, but we shall see.
Yeah, it felt like that was the goal all along, was get him ready for this game. And BJ Hill, I mean, yeah, you would think that would be a long shot on a short week. Chris Jenkins played really well today. The rookie second-round pick got his first career sack, had some pressures. So at least you've got that D-line mostly healthy, where you've got pieces you can roll through, and you don't think it'll be as bad as it was earlier in the year when BJ and Sheldon Rankins were both out.
One last thing I wanted to touch on before we bring you the Cincy shirt, and that is we saw two kind of late-ish hits from Max Crosby today.
Yeah.
And you had the offensive line not really coming to the defense of Joe Burrow. And this is probably more in the crosshairs because of what happened with Justin Herbert last week. And Andrew Whitworth was on his new pod with Brian Fitzpatrick talking about the culture of a team can be seen by how you go after a guy when something happens to your quarterback. No offensive lineman went after him. It was kind of surprising. Burrow didn't seem to care. Offensive lineman talked about it a little bit after the game.
Yeah, I was actually talking to Marius Mims about basically shutting down Max Crosby today. He did a hell of a job blocking against him. And I asked him about that play, and Ted Karras was standing next to him, and Ted Karras said that was my one regret from the game, is that we didn't address that more. But it was a weird play because they thought it. They didn't hear a whistle, but they thought it was blown dead. And both Amarius and Ted said that their concern was with Burrow, and then they saw him get up and kind of smile and give Crosby a little bit of a side bro hug, and so they thought everything was okay. And then it looked like Cody Ford came over. It looked like he was getting ready to say something to Max, and he didn't. And I just wonder if it's in the back of their mind where, okay, that was obviously late. Obviously the flag's on the ground. Do we want to negate that flag? Do we want to do something to stick up for your quarterback, but then get a flag ourselves? Yeah. I don't know if that's part of their mindset or not, but it was curious because you see they stick up for Burrow at every single turn, and that was a pretty egregious late hit. But again, it was one of those things where none of the officials blew a whistle, unabated to the quarterback. They are supposed to not just blow it dead, but the referee a lot of times steps in and says stop, and none of that happened. So it was just kind of a weird play all the way around.
Yeah, it was. But I know that was a big question. I even asked Joe about it after the game, and he didn't seem to have much concern. But I wanted to make sure we touched on that because a lot of you guys were bringing that up from watching the game. All right, Cincy Shirts. We have our special, of course, when the Bengals win, there's usually some kind of a Cincinnati football shirt that can come out from that. And this, you know what, if you're feeling the hope, right? You're feeling like this is the month. This is the comeback month. They had the September from hell. This is going to be the one that it all turns around and you believe in it. Here it is. No Lose Jovember hoodie presented by the Growler Podcast. So you can get your Jovember, the No Lose Jovember hoodie, $30 through Thursday. $30. Go use Growler Pod. You can have your own hoodie that you want. No Lose Jovember. You got to believe through Thursday. And then we'll see what happens for the duration of the month. Maybe this is the month. Yeah. Maybe this is the month that it all straightens itself out. Maybe this is the month. We don't know. It could be. It might not be. But you need to have your belief on your chest. Wear that hoodie. $30 Cincy Shirts. Of course, everything Cincinnati, whether you're talking about sports, roads, life, history, nostalgia, all there. You got it all. CincyShirts.com. Use Growler Pod, and you can get 10% off of everything that you purchase there. And We love Cincy Shirts and everything they do and sponsoring the program. And as does everybody over at BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar at the Banks. Again, our next live show will be on the 11th. Mid-season media madness as we talk about everything that's going on with the Bengals, our local media crew, and we will give you all the insights you want. You can ask your questions. We can hang out and talk everything before the Monday Night Football game, 7 o'clock on the 11th. Come check us out then. All right. Busy day.
I mean, we didn't talk at all, and it goes without saying, but a hell of a game by Trey Hendrickson.
Oh, yeah, we should talk about Trey Hendrickson. He only had 4 sacks.
4 sacks, 7 hits, 10 pressures. First player in Bengals history to have 11 sacks through 9 games. The last player in NFL history to do it was Myles Garrett last year. He went on to win the NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Just remarkable what he's doing. I did think it was funny after the game that he said, you know, you can't let the highs be too high, the lows be too low. He said that last week's poor performance did not drive him at all. Sam Hubbard said that was BS. Logan Wilson said that was BS.
Yeah.
He was a man on a mission this week, they said during practice, and it showed today. And it was he had 3 sacks in the fourth quarter alone.
Yeah.
It was a hell of a performance.
The Raiders had 5 ankle injuries. So,
Yeesh.
I mean, how many different guys did he end up beating? We have to go back and actually check
Yeah.
because they had guys on the move all day up there, and you put different guys and inexperienced guys in front of Trey Hendrickson, who is pissed off. That's what you get. You get 4 sacks, and I'm guessing you're probably going to see a Defensive Player of the Week award for Trey Hendrickson coming his way. But short week, Bengals, Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium, Amazon Prime. That will be on Thursday. Have everything for you from there. So thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you next time. Have a good one.